Okay, so let's do the thing we've been doing at the end of every episode, but we'll do it at the beginning of this episode.
Oh, you call them episodes?
So we're signing on?
Yes.
We're signing on.
Oh, what was my name?
No, just say.
What was my name?
Just say your actual.
I can't. Mick the Assassin.
No, just Michael. Just
Yo,
Michael.
it's Mick the Assassin.
Tatum.
No, I forgot what it was. We'll have to go back to next week and get that nickname right. Mick the Assassin Extraordinaire. That was it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is David.
This is Jesse.
Ben.
Mick the Assassin Extraordinaire.
There's no Landon tonight, so instead we have
Brandon.
His
Landon's evolved form.
Yes.
I'm what Landon should be.
Yeah, it goes
cool.
Brendan, Landon, Brandon.
I'm like the Super Saiyan of Andon.
Yeah, but to get
He's reached his final form.
to get him, you have to trade him with another person.
Yeah.
Like you go from Kadabra to Alakazam.
Yeah, exactly. We all know that.
I got bust out a Pokemon reference.
Some of us do.
We're talking about Dragon Ball Z.
I've actually never seen Dragon Ball Z.
Really?
You're missing out.
Well,
I have Dragon Ball GT in my room right now.
Well, let's stop this recording.
Yeah,
Go watch that show. We're
I've
doing the wrong thing tonight.
I've actually wanted to watch it, but I don't want to start on that one. I want to start at Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z.
If you get a Hulu subscription, they have it on Hulu.
Or Crunchyroll.
The subbed and dubbed versions.
I hear ads for Crunchyroll all the time.
I do too.
There's an app now. It works pretty well. I don't want to pay
It's like
$15.
$7 a month.
Yeah, I don't know. This is quite a bit.
It's like $7 a month.
I pay for Spotify for like stuff that I actually use in my day job.
You pay for Spotify?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I use the premium. Because then
What does that do?
Premium? You
Yeah.
can download the songs so they're on your phone, so you don't have to be online. And then instead of picking a band and then listening to random songs in their album, you actually get to pick the song and listen to it. It's like if someone says, "Hey, let's play this chart." I don't know this song. Put it up on Spotify, listen to it.
So in your job, it actually makes sense.
Yep. In the military, doesn't pay for it.
Really?
Well, if you think about it, you guys pay for it. But if you really think about it, I also pay myself through because I also pay Social Security and whatever.
Why am I working if all my money just goes straight to you?
It gets really sad when you think about it. I make like $4 an hour. I work 12-hour days.
Yeah.
Pay myself.
Well, what you need to do is you need to find that tax bracket to get in, so you're like just below.
I don't even want to think about it.
Oh.
I just want to go to work.
Your dad probably does that because he can write things off.
Yeah.
So he can write
probably.
he can write a number of things off to get him just below a certain threshold, so he pays a lot less in taxes.
Probably.
We had
He doesn't do any of that money. My mom does.
Oh,
but she's probably smart.
Well, maybe your mom does that. We had a friend in Hawaii who he retired from the Air Force, and then he became a realtor, and that's what he would do. He would try to write things off so he could get into certain tax brackets.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was writing off things for work. He wasn't just like, I bought this.
It was all legal.
Yeah.
All shady stuff.
It's like we'd go to lunch. He'd be like, oh, let's talk about business. Oh, it's a business lunch, you know. But then he pays for it, and then he writes it off.
Yeah.
I think my mom was saying a couple gifts that she got my dad were like things he could use for work. So she's like, "Well,
Right off.
we're gonna take that
thing
out
in
of
that
his business
closet
account."
right there's
Oh, is it up there?
Christmas gift. Yeah.
What is it?
He doesn't even know. It's so top secret.
No, I know what it is. I just don't want to say.
Why not?
We're recording.
It could get into the wrong hands.
What is it?
Okay, so instead of talking about
The government.
extremely boring stuff, let's all talk about what we want to talk about tonight. The only thing we're going to be talking about the whole night: Star Trek. Yeah,
New Star Trek's coming out. Yeah.
that trailer.
I haven't looked at it.
It's awesome.
Them Beastie Boys do.
I'm not a fan of the Star Trek now. Not a fan.
Did you like the first one?
I like the first
You don't
movie,
like
but-
yourself some Cumberbatch?
No.
Well,
He's okay.
He's not going to be in the third one.
No.
Oh, he will.
I don't know. I mean,
Con makes
Abrams
it
makes entertaining movies. He just poops on the whole genre that he's wanting to present.
That's disgusting.
You mean like him destroying
Poop it.
Vulcan and stuff like that?
Yeah, but like Star Trek is a pretty large nerd fan base.
It's
And
probably-
to change it completely. Yeah, he took away a lot of fans, but it's an entertaining movie which fits with the rest of the world. But then anyone who actually cared about Star Trek are upset.
But at least the old movies, you can still go back and watch them. I mean, you can still get that experience if you want that canon and you want to experience that.
I guess. But if you're a current Star Trek fan, there's nothing being made that's Star Trek other than what Abrams just directed.
What's the third one?
That's all you got.
Beyond.
Star Trek Beyond.
Star Trek in the Darkness.
Ben, don't eat on the table.
I just dropped a macaroni.
Quit dropping noodles.
Macaroni.
Okay, so we've all seen Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Star Wars.
It was awesome.
I don't know if we should talk about that.
I slept through
Shut
quite
you.
a big chunk.
Then
of
leave
the
this room
movie.
right now.
But I was awake for like Kylo Ren's
Who's the main character's name?
thing. Which main character?
Shut up.
Wrong answer.
Which one?
Which one? There's only one.
Who do you think?
Who's at the end of the movie? That's usually the clear sign of the main character.
Luke Skywalker, he's the main
Actually,
character.
R2. So.
When you're in the film for 5 minutes, you're the main freaking character.
Was it?
I think it was
Was
about
it Ray? Or whatever.
30 seconds.
Yeah,
5 minutes is
or
way too
whatever.
generous.
How much money did he make to just stand there?
probably a lot.
Why don't you ask him? I'm sure he'd tell you.
I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in.
Just tweet to
the
Mark
next
Hamill,
one.
hey, how much money did you make in Star Wars Episode 7 to just stand there?
Okay,
Well, after
so as someone that planned on not seeing the film in theaters,
Because Jonah ruined
That's me.
it for me.
First of all, you're dumb. And
What-
secondly, I'm just kidding.
what did you think of the film? What did you expect from the film? And what was your overall takeaway from the film?
Well, I expected it to be Star Wars. So,
Well,
That's a pretty good bet.
box one.
You know what? I expected the same thing. I'm really glad I was right.
I'm not a huge Star Wars fan.
Get out of
So,
I was expecting Wimbledon starring what's her face from
Star Wars? What's Star
Spider-Man.
Wars?
Was there even a
No.
war going on? Honestly,
it was good. I liked it for the parts that I saw. I liked Kylo Ren's lightsaber thing. That was kind of cool. His mask was cool. And shut up. I know I'm really terrible at talking about this.
We're just talking a little slow.
Hey,
But okay,
hey,
so
judge me
so
all you
here,
want. I
okay.
talk- I
Here's a
talk
question
super
though.
slow.
So you said you liked Kylo Ren's mask. Did you like his voice?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. I just
I think you just thought whatever I was going to ask her, you're going to say no
Yeah.
to.
no.
But did you like his mask? No, it was stupid.
I liked his mask. I don't think his voice was weird though. Like the voice filter they used, I didn't like very much.
What would you have liked his voice to be like?
I don't know.
I liked it a lot because not only did it resemble Darth Vader, but it was really different too. Like, it had its own kind of girth to it that made it interesting.
It was a lot simpler. It doesn't look very mechanical. Like Darth Vader's, you see and you think of mechanics and like you see all
Like the mask
tubes and
is
stuff.
helping
Yeah.
him breathe.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Like
everything.
the other one is just it's very. It looks kind of ancient. It's not there to help him like survive. Like
and why is only one clone trooper black?
We don't see.
Well, they're not.
they're not clone
They're
troopers.
not the
They're
same.
stormtroopers.
Yeah,
Because
sorry.
Finn has his line where he says
Explain to me why Finn all of a sudden isn't following the other stormtroopers.
Well,
like
I don't
does
think
his
he
own.
ever
was a defector.
ever followed him.
yeah,
And
because that was his first mission,
and
and he
didn't like
he
it.
freaked out from
So
the
how
very
did he become
beginning.
a stormtrooper?
He was taken
Like,
from a
plucked.
family when he was.
Plucked
I
from
believe
his
plucked
nethers.
was the word they used.
I need to rewatch it then
Well,
Good thing
maybe
we're going
because I know
there.
they mention things, but it flies by so quick. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, who's this guy?
I was-
The Ray girl. Like, oh, okay. They say that she's on the planet because she was left there and she's waiting for somebody, but they don't say who or
No,
what
they
or
don't.
what. Like Zero. Like, who the heck is this girl?
It's a big mystery.
So unless they bring it up in the next movies, which makes me want to watch the next one.
Well, that's I think going to be one of the big things of Episode 8 is where does Rey come from? What is her history? Is Luke her father? I think that's going to be a big one because a lot of people think that already, and that's kind of the biggest theory around her parents, is that Luke is her father, and no one knows who the mother is.
One thing that
What happened to Yoda? Did he die?
Did you see the movie that came out in the 80s?
Yeah, there's this movie that came out in 1981 called Empire Strikes Back that introduced Yoda, and then 83, Yoda dies. So that was a long time ago.
But seeing him fight, was it the first one he fought?
That was episode 2.
Episode 2? Little tiny guy just like flying around.
So what do you guys think about Rey and her?
I'm trying to have these girl power movies.
Oh my gosh.
I'm tired of it. It's always a girl
By the way,
power.
this targeted audience is only males.
Yeah.
Girls, go away.
White males.
Get out of our club. So,
I can see through your skin.
Dave, what specifically makes you think that Rey is not Luke's daughter?
There are things from the film that make me that I think they try to make you think that she's Luke's daughter, which is there's nothing in the film that makes it that shows otherwise, which makes it think that J.J. Abrams might want to be like trying to lead you in the direction, kind of like in Age of Ultron, where Joss Whedon's trying to get you to think that, okay, Hawkeye's gonna die, and they like really lay it on thick, and then it turns out it's Quicksilver. And so I think
died.
That's the only reason where I think like they push it enough to make you really think that she's gonna be his daughter, where that's not the case. But that's just a possibility. I think she probably will be Luke's daughter.
Oh, I thought you said you didn't think so.
Well, the whole point of the whole central characters to Star Wars are all Skywalkers, and right now we don't have a new Skywalker. We have a Solo. We have Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, but we don't have a real kind of lineage.
But she didn't say please. She got the lightsaber when it was in the snow. She didn't say please. She just picked the dang thing up.
Oh, well then she's not Luke.
Only Skywalker said please.
But
what's this please business? What is this?
Oh, yeah, didn't see it?
No. What?
When he hung upside down because he was captured by the...
And he said please to the
by
lightsaber?
what's the giant...
Wampa.
Yeah.
The snow creature?
Well, she today, I talked about this a little bit today.
He uses the Force for the first time and he says, please.
Oh, he doesn't? He doesn't say.
Oh, he doesn't. Okay.
He doesn't say please.
Well,
He says pretty please. With the cherry on top.
When I watched it a second time yesterday, I thought that she looks a lot like Shmi from episode 1.
From Japan.
From Hook?
Yeah.
What about Shmi?
I like it.
From episode 1, kind of the way she's
Shmi.
the way she's dressed and her hair kind of reminds me of her.
Could just be the natural way people dress in that environment.
So he's Anakin's aunt. Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. I feel it.
Who's Anakin's aunt?
Well, I guess another thing that makes me agree with you and believe that she might be Luke's daughter is because when they show the scene of her parents like leaving her, they could have easily shown just two people and actually shown their faces, but they didn't. They, for some reason, whether it's just artistic taste, they
it's to make it a mystery.
They didn't show, and I don't know if that's again Abrams teasing that. Oh, I'm just trying to make you think that she's Luke's daughter, but.
Well, the person pulling her, I think, is the guy in the junkyard, because you hear his voice.
That alien.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the one that Simon Pegg played? He's the only alien person I could think that was remotely kind of like a major role.
There was the pilot. He's not a major. I mean, there's not many major.
Pilot?
He has like an elongated anteater looking face. He's a rebel pilot.
Well, I think the set photos I saw, it looked like Simon Pegg was kind of in a fat suit.
No, that's
the only reason.
Who's Simon Pegg?
He did. Did he do?
He's in those Star Trek movies you love. He's Scotty.
Did he do?
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead.
Gotcha.
Hot Fuzz.
At World's End.
Yeah.
The World's End.
At World's End.
No, it's
This
the
is the
World's
end.
End.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
no,
Dave.
I was.
Dave, it's
Okay,
the World's
got
End.
him. I know who Simon Pegg is.
He's in the Mission Impossible movies, Brandon. His name is something. I don't remember.
No, I don't remember.
Snubby and
I don't know any of their names. I just know Ethan Hunt.
Ethan Hunt.
And his weird girlfriends that he gets every single movie, like James Bond. Or like
Hunt Girls. Is that what they're called?
Matt Damon. What's the
Bourne?
Yeah. And his random female companion.
That movie's coming out soon. New Bourne movie.
Really?
Pretty excited about
Is it Jeremy Renner?
No, it's Matt Damon again.
Really?
He's back.
He's back with the director from the first three.
Who did that?
So it's gonna be good.
I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Unlike the.
But not as good as Episode 8 of Star Wars.
Only a year and a half too. That's not very long at all.
Do you think they're gonna push it back?
Probably.
They better not.
The hype.
They made a promise. Disney never breaks promises.
They didn't make a promise.
They pinky swore the audience.
Yeah.
They said the release date is going to be in May of 2017. They didn't say.
No, okay. Now,
Yeah,
did they say for Episode 8 or the next Star Wars film?
Episode 8.
Okay, so it is.
Rogue One is.
Touch sound.
Is that later?
Certain
2018
person over there.
or something?
No, that's end of 2016. December.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, because we're getting one every year.
Do you know the timeline for all the movies?
Rogue One takes place around Episode 4, and it's them receiving the plans for the Death Star, the rebels. So it's about that squadron, Rogue One, retrieving the Death Star plans.
Cool. They made a video game of that, right? Rogue Squadron.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. It's gonna be
That was a good game.
I think
Can't bring it up if you never play it.
I just know
How
they-
dare you, Ben?
I think one thing this Star Wars had that a lot of others didn't was it had a lot more humor and jokes that most of the other Star Wars kind of it's sprinkled in a little bit, but there's not a lot of laughable moments in Star Wars films.
The one
Except for, Episode 2.
There was a lot of.
But none of those are.
Sand,
But none of those
Rough.
are. None of those
that
are
wasn't meant to be
intentional.
It's
laughs.
everywhere.
Um,
Ha ha ha
so,
ha.
did you guys like that about the movie, or not?
Yeah,
like it?
I thought they did a good job at doing the humor from the original trilogy. There wasn't any P-U-S-A humor to it.
The one joke I didn't.
Kids.
The one joke I didn't like was in the beginning with that. The one guy was like a rebel flyer. He flies in the X-wing or what's his name?
Poe.
Poe Dameron.
He says something about
Joseph.
Kylo Ren's mask in the beginning. Like he says he can't hear him, understand him. And it was supposed to be funny. I was like, I didn't think that was funny.
I laughed my butt off.
Did you think
No.
that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I didn't think it was bad.
Well, I think what that does is they use it. They use that at the very beginning because we haven't seen much of him yet, and so it shows that he's kind of a cocky individual.
It just bothered me because I thought that was going to set the tone for the whole movie. I was like, oh.
No, I think it sets
Oh,
the tone
no.
for his character and what he's like, and
I didn't really see that
how that's how he faces adversity, is that he gets all cocky about it, and so
No, watch about
and
that.
you see that with every interaction with Poe and with Kylo Ren or with the other people of the First Order, how he's just really kind of, I guess, cocky around them. And
I didn't really see that the worst in the movie, though.
I don't like when he's being tortured and when he's just very flippant with Kylo Ren.
I don't know. I didn't like it.
Okay.
I didn't like how terrible at lightsaber battles everybody was.
That's one thing that kind of surprised me. It makes me feel like Kylo Ren's training was a lot more force-based than saber battle. And I guess that would make sense because Luke wasn't very trained, as far as saber goes. So I wonder if they're going to move more towards force-related Jedi, fighting styles. and move away from the kind of saber flashy stuff from the prequels.
Like not like the first, the 1, 2, and 3 Star Wars battle.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to distance themselves a little bit from that, because it got to the point where it was so over the top and so crazy. You think of the Dooku fight with Yoda. I mean, every time I see that now, I'm laughing out loud because it's so ridiculous. I mean, you see the fight in Episode 4 with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, and it's funny in a sense when you have seen the others, because it's so slow.
We just think they're old.
But the walk, like it's kind of more of a dance, the way they approach it. Where the other in the prequels, their fights are kind of just like really flashy, just all over the place. It's just like, it's really for spectacle and to see, like, look at what we can make you guys go ooh at when you watch the movie. Where I really like the fights in 5 and 6 with between Luke and Darth Vader, especially in Episode 6. Like, there's enough action in it, but it's like believable. Like you could picture them wearing armor and having swords, and that would be a fight that medieval fighters would have.
At the same time, though, I mean, I do like the flashy. I guess mostly like Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon. That one,
the Duel of Fates.
Yeah, and then I didn't mind so much the final fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan. I thought there was good emotion in that fight, mainly from Ewan McGregor.
If your whole life is dedicated to training using one weapon, then you should be able to be very competent and able to wield it in whatever. And if you're fighting somebody who can also do the exact same thing, at least ability level, because when you're trying to take a long stick and slice somebody and they try to block it, then you have to be able to feint and do other things that all the flashiness comes in, and that's where it becomes like swordplay.
Well, and I think that's why the fight between Kylo Ren and with Finn and Rey wasn't very proficient, because
they didn't know how
both Rey and Finn have little to no experience with the lightsaber, and what Rey's power came from was the Force, and even it looked like Kylo Ren doesn't have that much skill with it. Like Michael was saying, he's a lot more
I think it's because he was
tuned with the Force. I mean, like,
he was injured.
Well, yeah, he was injured too, but like, you see how powerful he is with the Force. I mean, we've never
mind
with
read.
the Force chokes.
Yeah, and no, I'm talking about like he can stop a laser bolt. We haven't seen
that
anything
was
like
really
that
cool.
with this character. And that's I mean, you think about how like powerful that is. That's like really cool to think about that. But then you see him fight. I mean, like, most of his interaction that we see with him with a lightsaber is his outbursts of anger. Like, that's where we see the lightsaber more from him. Is just, it kind of shows that he's kind of unhinged, I guess. And we see that a little bit in the fight where he's not very proficient, but he's very, I mean, kind of ruthless.
Speaking of the outburst, I thought that he did a really good job at playing that immature,
yeah, he did,
little man. Yeah, like, I think that's what Hayden Christensen was going for, but I thought the Kylo Ren character pulled that off really well.
Yeah.
It wasn't annoying. It wasn't a whiny little brat, but you still saw those temper tantrums from Kylo Ren. But he pulled it off in a leadership kind of mature role as well.
Well, and one thing that I had talked to you about earlier was that I think this is what fans
who'd you talk to?
Fans wanted.
Who'd you talk to?
Darth Vader to be like when he was younger. That we see in the prequels, that like this is what they wanted a young version of Darth Vader to be like, was someone like that. I mean, like, we see kind of a brooding Darth Vader in Hayden Christensen in Episode 2 and 3, but it's that leap from connecting.
Hayden Christensen.
He
played Obi-Wan.
I know it's not Obi-Wan. With Anakin?
Yeah,
he played Anakin. I think making the leap...
care about actors' names?
Making the leap from him as Anakin in those two movies to him becoming Darth Vader that we see in 4, 5, and 6 is a really big leap. Now, what we see of Kylo Ren in this movie, it's not hard to picture him becoming someone like Darth Vader. I mean, he really already is someone like that. He's more immature, he's younger, he's not as powerful. It looks like he doesn't have as much influence as Darth Vader had in the original trilogy. So I really like the way they've set him up, and with what he does kind of to finish his training with killing his father in this movie. It's cool to see where they're going to take him and just how powerful he becomes and what kind of...
why with the Sith there's always the higher, like
the next guy up.
Higher superior. Whereas with the Jedi Order, it was just the Jedi Council. That was as high as it went.
Well, I think that's one thing the Sith has always been. They've always kind of been in the shadows and like hiding
knows who
and
they are.
and being that mysterious literal figure in a cloak.
It's ridiculous.
As far as what do they call him? In the Snoke Snow from Mockingjay.
No, Snope, like the website.
Like Snoop?
Like Snopes.
Snoopy?
Check it up on Snopes. What's his name? Snoke.
Who's Snoke?
He's that guy in the hologram that you think is like a huge giant.
Yeah. I know that's all show.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he was...
Oh, that's what I thought at first. I was like, man, that's kind of stupid. Like, what kind of fight would that be like? I'll just step on you with my like pinky toe. But I'm glad he was a hologram, so I'm assuming he's not going to be, 20 feet tall. But
I think that's really smart the way they did that, though, because when you see him at the very beginning of the scene, already, like, on screen, he takes up a big physical presence, and it kind of helps you as the viewer realize that he's a powerful, important character. And even though he's not literally that size, since we're introduced to him that way, we think of him off the bat as, like, we don't know it's a hologram. So we think, okay, this guy is really big, he's really powerful, he's looking down on these people that we already see as powerful characters. So this guy must be someone really important. And so from the beginning of that scene, we have that impression. And so by the end, when he fades away, we realize, okay, that's not really him. But now we have that impression of this extremely powerful character that we're going to see really just how powerful he is.
Well, yeah, and I think it keeps the audience guessing and in mystery about who he actually is. Mm-hmm. I personally think it's going to be Darth Plagueis.
The guy who's a big time nerd.
Brandon, there's some movies that came out early 2000s. They're called Star Wars.
99, 2002, 2005.
That's okay.
You think I'll pay attention to half of those?
He's the. Do you know who Darth Sidious is?
Yes.
Who is he?
He's the...
Wrong!
He's the Darth guy. I think he has a red lightsaber, wears black sometimes.
Yes.
That basically directed where they got to where they're at today.
Yeah, Darth Plagueis was his master.
And they mentioned him one time.
Yeah, he talks about...
That's what I'm saying. It goes by so quick, and I don't watch him 10 times and remember all this stuff.
Well, that's where you're lacking. Gotta watch him 10 times.
This is an intervention to get you to watch Star Wars more.
I like Star Wars, but not enough to sit there and watch it 5 times.
Anyway,
I bet you know all the names in Lord of the Rings. Like, you just rattle them off.
Gimli, son of Gloin. Anyway, so I think...
You picked Gimli out of all the characters. That's the easiest one.
You gotta go with a bearded dwarf.
That's true.
But I think he's gonna end up being...
the man.
Who that is. I mean, I don't know where I heard it, and I'm sure it's possibly wrong, but... that he was stabbed to death by Darth Sidious. I think those like that huge gash on his forehead is probably from that. And they even talk about how he had the power to
create
life and cheat life, basically. So I think that's who it's going to be.
How do you know that? That he could cheat life?
Because they talk about it.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Brandon, there's some movies that came out in the early 2000s.
It's because
they had one conversation.
99, 2002, 2005.
Because Anakin didn't want what was her name? Padme. He didn't want her to die.
Ben, there's some movies that came out in the early 2000s.
No, he didn't want Padme to die, and he was worried about her dying. So
Brandon,
he wanted the secret.
That's Anakin's wife.
He wanted the secret to immortality, and so he was talking to the bad guy, and the bad guy was trying to persuade him.
Yes.
So in that one conversation where he said he learned stuff, he mentions who he learned it from.
It's heavily
Darth
implied.
was a dark lord of the Sith.
It's heavily implied that in that scene that Sidious was the Padawan of.
Well, I think it even says
that
his Padawan murdered him in his sleep. I
but
think
he doesn't explicitly say that. However,
I
we
think
as
he
the
does.
viewers know...
I think he does. I think he says that.
No, he does say that. He doesn't say that it's Sidious.
No, but it's his Padawan.
Yes, it's his Padawan.
It's obvious that it's him, but they do say that.
Who kills him in the night.
Yeah.
Because
By stabbing him in the face.
I talked to Jonah today, and they said certain things from that scene, since they weren't explicitly said, were decanonized.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wait for it.
We're decanonized. Like,
dramatic music.
For instance, the whole immaculate conception of
babies
of Anakin.
Yes, a mystery to it.
So they're saying that's not canon anymore?
Yes.
So someone did knock up Shmi.
Possibly.
Whoa. Was it the Emperor?
That'd be weird. Know. How can you decanonize the movie itself?
Because they didn't explicitly say that. It was just heavily implied. It was then later confirmed.
She said there was no father.
No, yes, that's what she said.
But see, that's where it also can. I could think if they're doing that, which I think is kind of weird, but I think it's kind of a cop out. But
well, it's kind of an opposite of a cop out. The cop out was
cop in. Anyway, don't interrupt me. I'm still going somewhere with this before I lose my train of thought. I think if they're saying that, then essentially her mind was wiped of being raped or whatever it was. Shmi.
Anakin's mother.
Hey, whoa, maybe it was consensual.
Wait.
So that would
then who's the
who's
the immortal guy?
That would make me assume that it's possible to essentially wipe a memory with force abilities. So that would also then, add ground to maybe Rey's memory was wiped and that she doesn't remember her father because of that.
Or Shmi was so ashamed that she had relations with Palpatine that
which could be possible.
that she just really
I would be ashamed too.
But Shmi is that big hologram guy, right?
What? No!
Shmi is Anakin's mother from episode 1.
Who's the big hologram guy?
Snoke.
Okay, I was mixing up those two.
How dare you talk about his
mother
really
that way? Confused this whole conversation.
I didn't even know he had a
so
name.
The hologram guy was banging the
banging
Sidious? What the hell?
What a weird master.
I didn't know it was a girl.
The Sith is checked up, man.
That pretty lady.
That dark side.
Just some big Sith orgy.
Conceived in the darkness.
I want to know if the Sith is so powerful to hide in the shadows, or the big time Force people who study it and understand it can hide from their senses, but not be able to build an actual working weapon that can't be destroyed.
Well, it wasn't the Sith that built that.
Or
it was
just
the First Order that built it.
Yeah.
I mean,
or use the Force to mind control people and put all the guys they want in control.
Well, they do have all the guys they want in control right now.
Obviously not, because we're still fighting.
Well, that's because the people rose up to fight the people who were put in power. That's
Where's
why
all the Sith Jedi? How come there's only 2?
Sith Jedi? There's no such thing as Sith Jedi.
Where's all the Nazi U.S. Marines?
Well, the thing about the Sith is that there's always just 2. There's always the master and the apprentice.
No more.
No less. Yeah. So I don't know why that is. That seems kind of inefficient. Because if you lose one of them, obviously, the other guy's like, oh crap, I need to quickly find a new person to train.
Do you think they have it like a vice president? As soon as that one dies, someone swears into that position, he's got him tucked away somewhere.
Yeah. So as soon as Darth Maul died, Dooku was like, oh, I'm ready.
So wait. Okay, if you could say there's just the master and then the what? And then the apprentice. Okay, well then, how come Palpatine wanted... Is it Palpatine? Wanted Anakin for his...
It's Shmi.
For his apprentice. Because how could he do that when there's already another guy up above him?
He could take on multiple apprentices.
Well, there wasn't. There was Dooku, who he technically wasn't really a Sith. He was
technically the big hologram guy. Wasn't he above
Plagueis? At that point, he was dead.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah. Sidious had Darth Maul. and then Darth Maul died,
Let's just keep
and then Sidious probably was looking for other people to become his apprentice. Was my guess. The thing is, like, now it's a lot easier to speculate about things because they used to have books that had that information, so like you couldn't be like, well, maybe Sidious was doing this because there was like hundreds of books that explained exactly what happened. But since those have all been decanonized now, it's
there's that word again.
Dun dun dun.
We can kind of speculate a little bit about things that happened.
Mm-hmm. You can.
So, what the assumption is right now, what the assumption is right now is that Snoke is the master of the Sith,
Shmi,
and that Kylo Ren is the apprentice.
Why'd they kill Han Solo, man?
What kind of a name is Kylo?
Kill him. What kind of name is Jesse? What kind of name is I limp like a G? Yeah, you just make up a cool name that, like, yeah, this is what I want to go by. Same thing.
Jonah read something that it was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
I didn't say
Kylo Ren.
Want
so he's part of the Knights of Ren, which that's where he got Ren from. So he didn't.
Kylo the Ren? Kylo the Ren? The Knights of Ren? I get it!
So he joined the Knights of Ren, so that's kind of became his last name, his surname. So Ren. But Kylo, Kai, and Lo, Kai from Skywalker, and Lo from Solo. So Kylo. Just put them together.
Half-Life 3.
Yeah.
It's confirmed!
I mean, that could also just be an easy way of, like, someone was like, quick, let's think of a name for this guy. And they were like, well, he's a Skywalker Solo, Sky Solo, Kai Skolo, Kylo. Okay, there we go.
Kylo.
I always think of the Malcolm quote where he calls him Bert. Hey, Bert,
Bert.
Halbert,
Albert.
Hal.
Lost my train of thought. But something was said. I was gonna pounce on it.
What did Brandon say that was wrong about Star Wars?
Everything. Which one?
Who's that again?
Shmee!
Please.
So, when does the Enterprise show up?
Han Solo's death. Okay, so obviously it was gonna happen.
Obviously.
I was expecting it the whole film. When it came to that point, I had to tuck my knees up into my face. I knew it was coming, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
That was a mess.
My eyes started watering because you care about the characters. You go from
I've seen all seven of them.
Clearly, you missed
something.
Well, Han Solo also has been Michael's favorite character in Star Wars for a long time.
Don't mess with the Solo. But yeah, I like Harrison Ford has always wanted that character to die off, and obviously with him getting
he wanted him to die in
into his
5.
mid-70s now, it only makes sense for that character to go away, to hand that torch off to the new generation. But it sucked. But the way they did it was good, though. It kept that theme of, a father-son conflict, that instead of, it being the other way, and instead of
why is it
the other party living, he succumbs to the dark side still and kills him.
That whole fight scene between the two of them,
Was it a fight?
kind of.
No.
Did they fight?
It
Or
was
just walk down.
Yeah.
It was all in the same like you think of the fight between Vader and Luke. It also took place where it was just like a sky bridge and then like a giant open space,
like a catwalk kind of.
And I was like, it's like the same scene.
That's where the best fights happen, man.
And why is it always like?
Because it's an open area.
Just an open,
a
giant open room with one walkway.
It's the threat of falling. I don't know. It's scary.
Have you ever been in a big ship? Like a big one?
No.
Yeah, there's catwalks everywhere with open spaces because there needs to be space. And the only way to get around to like do the little maintenance stuff is catwalks.
And also, it helps mirror that experience from Episode 5 and it's one thing they did is they made it a lot like the fight with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 4, where you have two characters, these main characters looking as these two old or one older person fights off with this other individual, ending with one of their deaths. And so you get the scream from Rey and from Finn, and so I think that was good how they did it, because you do get that sense of now Kylo Ren finished that portion of his training, and so he will pursue that and continue on. But also since you had Rey there and since you had Finn there, they have that experience of seeing that, and so now they have these feelings about Kylo Ren. And
where did his body go when he died though? Because it fell and then disappeared.
The planet blew up.
Well, Yeah, they're gonna show Han Solo's guts be splatted across the ground. That'll do that character justice. Not only are we gonna stab your favorite character through the chest, we're gonna show his guts just splatter everywhere.
We really didn't like this guy.
Where's Han Solo's arm? Oh, it's 5 miles over there. Plus, the whole planet gets consumed anyway. It's like, of course, everything on that planet's dead.
Han Solo's body drifts in space.
There's left here.
So, do you think they're going... Not that it's a huge deal, but do you think they're going to show how Kylo Ren got off? Because they never showed it, right?
No. Well, when Hux walks up to Snoke at the end...
He says, get...
Yeah. Snoke says, get...
to complete his training.
Yeah. Grab Kylo Ren, bring him to me, and that way we can complete his training. So, I mean, and that's common in a lot of films where you don't see that because that would kind of be a boring scene. I mean, we know that's going to happen.
Oh, they picked him up.
The fans want it!
So, I mean, that wasn't something that I was like, why wasn't that scene there? And I didn't even consider that he was dead.
Yeah.
Like, when you said that, when you asked me, so did Kylo Ren die? Did he make it off the planet? I thought that was kind of a ridiculous question, because I was like, well...
Ridiculous.
Yeah, so...
He's alive.
What, are you stupid?
No, it's
watch
just...
the movie?
I meant ridiculous in a way that it wasn't something I had even considered, because I didn't...
Well, I mean, obviously...
What if he did die?
That'd be a really boring end to that character's story. Because they build
up in the end.
Yeah, just didn't get off the planet, so...
Obviously, he survived, but I thought about it. I was like, wait, I don't ever remember seeing him get off, and I forgot about the scene where Snoke asks what's-his-face to go get him.
The conversation continues. We have no way to get him off the planet. Oh, well.
Well, that sucks.
Can you hold a lightsaber?
Well, one thing I do want them to address is Anakin's lightsaber. I want them to tell me how they get it. Where'd they get the box?
Well,
why is it in the box?
What's in the box?
That will happen just because that's such an iconic piece of the movie, that lightsaber. And so the fact that, I mean, fans would really be upset if they didn't explain.
Well, yeah, and the fact that lightsaber is not only big in the prequels, but also the original trilogy, and now this new trilogy, because it's talked about as the lightsaber is destined to be yours. Talking to Rey about it, so it's like it's got to be important enough to address.
Yeah, well, Maz Kanata says when they're down there, she says, it was Darth Vader's and it was Luke's, and then now it'll be yours. Kind of like almost going down the lineage of, like, who's your grandfather's just your father. So, like, that's another reason why there's kind of an allusion to her being related to Luke in that way, that it's just kind of
exactly.
The lightsaber follows that line. Apparently, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but how the film was going to start was after the crawl, that you were going to see a severed hand floating in space, holding the lightsaber.
I would have hated that. That would have been stupid. I'd be like, I'm out. Can't take this.
And then it gets picked up by a ship.
That would be stupid. I don't want that as the explanation. How did the hand get in space? It fell out of Cloud City. If anything, it'd be like crawling around on the ground.
But it's Cloud.
next to Han Solo's splattered gut.
So, yeah, I think that will have
an R rating for that. That would have been great.
The origin of them getting the lightsaber has to come out just because people would be outraged. Okay, the fans, people who know.
There we go.
Because do you know what happens to that lightsaber? Do you know why that's a big thing that comes up?
No.
Okay, so in episode 5, that was Anakin's lightsaber, and Luke.
See, there's some movies that came out in the 70s and
Luke
80s.
uses it in the duel with Darth Vader when they're on Cloud City. Darth Vader cuts off Luke's hand. It falls all the way down to the bottom of Cloud City in that
and then
thing.
it just disappears.
And you never see the lightsaber again in the original trilogy. So, I mean, you can assume that
where
it
did
fell
it
out
come
somewhere.
from?
That's what the question is.
Wait a
That's
minute.
Why we're talking?
Where
about
did that lightsaber come from?
How did
Cloud
it get in
City.
the box?
Well, it's floating over Bespin, which is a planet, and I think it's a mining planet, but it's like a gas mine.
It turns out the lightsaber just fell down the same way Luke did, and it just landed on the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And it got like stuck in there. Like, oh, what's this thing?
Maybe it wasn't. No, that's the only blue lightsaber. Well, it could have been Ben's, right?
No, that is.
That
Anakin's
was-
Oh, yeah, you're right.
That is
Sorry.
the lightsaber.
I don't even think you didn't ever see Obi-Wan's lightsaber after he gets killed.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe they decommission it.
So that's a big question that has to be answered because
It better be freaking answered.
because people I think would be that's a little far fetched as to how such an important thing like that just comes into the hands of
Some.
yeah.
It is J.J. Abrams. He ruins everything.
Well, did you guys have gripes with the films? I know Ben didn't like some of the humor with Oscar Isaac's character.
I was very happy with the humor. I thought they did it very well. It was probably the most funny Star Wars, but it wasn't like over the top, like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of laughing. I want some drama in this Star Wars film. But I thought
of laughing.
I thought they did a good job with that. One thing that I wish they would have at least saved for the second film that's going to come out is I wish they wouldn't have unmasked Kylo Ren so soon. I see why they did it, though, because I think they just want to differ from a Darth Vader type character where his face is revealed at the very last minute kind of thing. And
I think a big reason they do that is because of the storyline with him being a Solo. And if you would have had all that interaction with Han Solo, with him wearing the mask the whole time, you didn't get that moment of humanizing that character. And I think it would have taken away from a lot of how we experience Kylo Ren in the film and what we think of him and kind of where we place him in this universe, in this the Star Wars universe. And so I think it's a good thing they did that in regards to the whole interaction with Han Solo. And the scene where he unmasks, I really like that because when you kind of see the dichotomy between Rey as this good character who's suddenly learning how to use the Force when she prevents Kylo Ren from reading her mind, and then you get this dark character who's conflicted with he's getting a pull from the light, which we haven't seen that in a character before, which is kind of cool. I mean, we see people like fending off the darkness, but we haven't seen a dark character who's fending off the light, because his struggle is that feels like he's getting pulled back into being good, which we don't see that very often in most films, and we definitely haven't seen it in a Star Wars film. So I think that was kind of a cool angle for a character and for a villain.
I just smashed down my thoughts. Thanks.
Sorry. So what about other gripes? Jesse, for the 3 minutes that you were awake of the film, what did you not like?
Did you really fall asleep? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Fell asleep during The Hobbit.
Well, that's an okay movie to fall asleep.
Yeah,
during.
that's
You
understandable.
fall asleep during any of those three.
There's like the whole fight in the trees when they're catching on fire. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you could have fallen asleep like 10 minutes into the film, and then you wake up like an hour later, and there's still hobbits showing up to, or dwarves still showing up to bag in, and you're like, my goodness, when is this going to end? One thing I had an issue with was, so they build the Star Killer planet and then they use it in the film to destroy the Hazian system, which is the seat of the New Republic.
Is that the like 8 laser?
Yeah, which is the seat of the New Republic, and they destroy the entirety of the Republic. So
it seemed kind of like just thrown in there a little.
Yes, and that's the problem I have. The thing is, it wasn't very weighted. Like, you see that and you're not affected by it. Like when Alderaan is destroyed in Episode 4, we've experienced Leia for a little bit, and we know her connections to Alderaan, and we know that that's her home planet. And so you even get a little bit of a feeling when her home planet is destroyed. And that's where Luke and Obi-Wan were trying to go to in Episode 4. In this one, there's not a lot of work with the Republic. I mean, it's the Resistance, who is kind of their sort of an offshoot of the Republic, but really they're kind of just guerrilla fighters fighting the First Order. And so you get the Starkiller base, and you see General Hux talk about, he gives this whole spiel about how he's going to destroy the New Republic. And then they do that, but you haven't seen any of the Republic at all for the entire film. You've just heard a little bit about him, but not a lot of weight is put on them. And so you see all these characters, and they freak out. Our planet gets destroyed, but it's not. There's not much of an impact because they really didn't focus on that. I think one thing is they were trying to distance themselves again from the prequels, where they focused a lot on kind of boring politics about trade disputes and stuff like that. So I think they tried to pull away from doing like showing politics with the New Republic, and so I think that's why they did that. However, I think maybe a scene or two of what the Republic does and what their influence and importance is.
Was Jar Jar Binks on that planet?
No, probably not.
Dang it!
that old Republic, the old Republic was disbanded long ago. This was a New Republic that was instated after Episode 6. So I think that kind of took away from a little bit from the film for me, because it was supposed to be a moment where you're affected by it, because now really it is just the Resistance left. But the problem is we didn't see the Republic, we didn't get much interaction with the Republic, so it wasn't something that affected...
Oh, sorry, am I distracting you?
That affected me very much. So I thought that was kind of something that bothered me. One other thing was they talk about like kind of the lore and the myth of Han Solo and of Luke Skywalker, and kind of the history, like Rey, when Han Solo's mentioned, she's like, Han Solo, and they talk about like when Finn comes and says a map to Luke Skywalker, and she's like, what does she say? I thought he was a myth or something. They do that a little bit, but then we see all the characters pretty quickly, and they kind of get over that very, very quickly. Also, the new characters, they're like, oh, okay, they're real, whatever. And I think they could have built that up a little bit better. They could have made them...
there was a part where Han Solo's like telling them, all those myths you heard, well, they're all true.
Yeah, they did that, but at that point, I felt like they didn't build up to it enough to make it, like, you didn't see, like, that they didn't feel like there was these myths and this ancient kind of history. And so I think that scene wasn't as important as it could have been, because you didn't see the characters kind of feeling that way. They had like one throwaway line where they said that, like, oh, I thought Luke was a myth, but that was it. Like, so when Han has this long talk about, like, it's all real, it's all real, it's all real, it's like, I didn't feel like there was a lot of questioning on our part that it wasn't real. And does that make sense?
Yeah, or like when they're on the planet and they're finding all the junk stuff, like with the Star Destroyers, whatever, like, why are those there? Oh, well, back in the day, there was this Jedi Order. Like, zero conversation about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that
wasn't relevant at all.
I think that targets more of this generation's audience, since I think they're literally saying, hey, there used to be these movies back a long time ago, and they're kind of literally, pulling that out of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
And saying that's I think what makes sense to me.
I can see that. That makes
kind
sense.
of introducing all of this to the newer generation for Star Wars.
Yeah, because for someone like for you who had seen the movies a lot, like there was no question for you that these characters were and can you put yourself in the position of someone who hadn't? I mean, like you see these characters, are you questioning that? Man, who are these people? This Han Solo and this Luke Skywalker, and I didn't feel like those characters had that kind of like established like mythos that like there were these grand heroes 30 years ago. Like it didn't seem like that was something that was really established in them. So that's why when Han does his whole speech, it seems kind of unnecessary to me because I felt like the characters didn't really even think that way. It didn't seem like that they thought,
Well, Jordan had never seen any Star Wars movie, and going back to the whole like bringing the old movies back to the newer generation, Jordan had said to me, Jordan had said to me yesterday that he had never seen any of the Star Wars movies, but he wanted to, like, because he saw Episode 7, he thought Episode 7 was, like, fantastic or whatever, and then he wanted to go back and watch, like, 1 through 6, like, the original.
If he does that, I need to let him borrow the movies and tell him to watch them in machete order.
Machete order? What order is that?
So you watch 4 and 5, then you watch Episode 2, then Episode 3, then you watch Episode 6.
You just leave out Phantom
So
Menace.
you leave out
You
Phantom
don't need
Menace.
the first
So you watch the first 2 of the original trilogy.
If anything, just watch the Duel of Fates, and then you're done.
Yeah, you watch the first 2 of the original trilogy.
What a cool lightsaber battle should look like.
Yeah.
And then move on.
The second 2 of the prequel trilogy, and then you watch the last film of the original trilogy. And we recently watched the films in that order, and that's an interesting order because it tries to preserve certain twists about the film. So if you start with Episode 1, you learn right away that Anakin, you know who Anakin Skywalker is, and then by Episode 3, you learn that he is Darth Vader. So you know that Anakin is Darth Vader, you know that he's a Skywalker, and so when you get to Episode 4 and we have a Luke Skywalker, you're like, this is Darth Vader's son. So you know in 4 and you know in 5 that they're related.
Well, and even at the
end
of the third movie,
when Padme gives birth and they name Luke, like you know that's the end that Luke and Leia are.
Leia. Oh, my mother had a beautiful face.
Aside from the first movie being terrible, why would you cut it out from?
So let me
finish.
So when you start with Episode 4, that was the first Star Wars movie that came out. So that's an easy movie to start with anyway because you didn't need an established film to start with. So you watch Episode 4, you learn everything in that movie. You learn about the struggle between Luke and you with the Empire, and you learn about Darth Vader and everything, and you learn about the Force and all that. Then you watch Episode 5, you learn that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and you learn a lot more about Darth Vader in that film. And so the film ends with Darth trying to get Luke to come to him and to be his apprentice, and so that they can kill the Emperor. So you learn about the Emperor in that movie too, and you learn about, you kind of build up their struggle. So you finish Episode 5, then you jump into Episode 2. So Episode 2 is Anakin Skywalker. So you know, this is Darth Vader when he was younger. Mm-hmm. So he's around the same age as Luke in Episode 4. And so now we watch what was Anakin like when he was Luke's age, and we see his build up to being Darth Vader. So we learn about his journey to the dark side and how he kind of veers left to the dark, where we're seeing Luke veer to the right, to the light side of the Force. So then we're introduced to Palpatine, who he's this guy that we're not quite sure who he is. He's just this chancellor. He's this political figure. And we don't see a lot of him in episode 2, if I'm not mistaken. He just kind of has a couple scenes. So you don't know that he is the Emperor at that point, that he's the Emperor that we see in episode 5. So then we get to episode 3, and a lot of things come to fruition there. We learn about the destruction of the Jedi and where they all go. We learn, Palpatine is this Emperor guy that we saw in episode 5, and we know that he's a big enemy. Mm-hmm. We see Anakin's turned to the dark side. He's just totally dressed in black. He becomes this evil Darth Vader, and we realize, okay, it's kind of like an extended flashback. Yeah. So we see 4 and 5, then we get 2 and 3, which is kind of the extended flashback of Darth Vader. Then we jump into 6, and episode 6 starts out with, we see Luke dressed entirely in black. He has a metal arm, and so you're thinking, what happened to, is he suddenly kind of turning into this evil character like Hayden Christensen did in episode 2 and 3? And so
he played Anakin, right?
Yes, yeah, he played Anakin. So you have these questions of wondering, okay, where is this going? And you get a much better parallel between Luke and Anakin Skywalker, and kind of how they have a similar walk in regards to the Force. And so, you have that film, and you finish out all 6 movies or 5 movies this way, and you retain that twist of the lineage with Luke and Darth Vader, and the twist about with Palpatine being the Emperor, because then in episode 6, the final film of watching all of them, you kind of realize the big bad is Palpatine, and so now you have kind of the 2 main characters that you saw throughout the first 2 chunks. You have Darth Vader, who you realize is much more important than you originally thought he was when you saw episode 4, and you have Luke Skywalker, and you see how they work towards the end of the film, where they end up working together to defeat the big bad of the whole series, the Emperor. And so we watched it in that order, and I really liked it in that order. And for someone who hasn't seen the films before, I think that'd be a really interesting order to watch it in. Because if you watch 1 to 6...
episodically?
Yeah. It's okay, but, watching episode 1... One reason episode 1 is cut out is there's basically nothing in that film that affects the other films. You don't really need an extensive backstory of where Anakin came from when he was, age 9 to or whatever, because we don't get that with Obi-Wan Kenobi. We don't know what Obi-Wan Kenobi did when he was 9 years old. We don't know what Qui-Gon Jinn was like when he was 9. And you think of, there's nothing from that film that actually is important to those other 5 films. You also cut out Jar Jar Binks for the most part. You cut out almost all of Jar Jar Binks.
Almost?
Yeah. You have a little bit in episode 2 and barely any in episode 3. So
everyone knows that he's the real Sith.
So that the machete order, awesome. I think it's called machete order because it cuts out episode 1 and it hacks up the film, moves them all over the place. But it's a really cool order to watch them in. And next time I watch all the films, that's probably what I'll do from now on. That's the order I'll watch it in.
Should have brought back Padres.
Yeah. When you said
there's Padres.
When you said machete order, I just started thinking about
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo.
Well, and it's nice movie. When you watch it in that order, because with the new films that come out, you can just tack them on at the end. You finish episode 6, you start episode 7. You don't have to okay, where does this fit in the weird order of machete? So any future films you can just tack them on because it's chronologically that way, and they came out after those films as well, so it's the flow of the story will be a lot more fluid in that way. But I really liked the new movie. I'm really excited for the next one. It's a bummer that we have to wait a year and a half, but if it's because we get
it's a bummer.
That's way better than 3 years, which is normally what these kind of movies do.
Well, you think of Lord of the Rings, where you got 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. You kind of got spoiled when we had that.
By the way, Star Wars: The Force Awakens opening weekend box office.
No, like $40 billion.
Is there a fun fact?
No.
Nick, is there a fun fact?
Fun fact of the week.
All right.
If you totaled up all the films box office over all time, it's nowhere near $40 billion. It's got to be way less than that.
It, I believe, has the record now. I don't know. I don't know
opening weekend.
I don't know if this is worldwide or just domestic.
It's worldwide.
It is $238 million.
That blows the old record out of the water.
The one below it is Jurassic World at $208 million. Below that, Marvel's The Avenger, $207 million. Below that, Age of Ultron, $191 million. And below that, Man of Steel at $174 million. I'm sorry, I couldn't read that. It's Iron Man 3 at $174 million.
I was like, nah, that's not right.
Okay, anyway. So yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's like... That is insane. Just in the weekend, too. And I honestly think
Still going, huh?
it has a really good shot at overthrowing Avatar.
As being...
Really? Avatar?
Was that
How high was that?
Avatar grossed, in total, $2.7 billion.
Okay,
And
where's Star Wars at right now?
$238 million in the opening weekend.
So that's what, an eighth.
And I'm about to go see it again.
Yeah, people are gonna go.
Yeah,
see
let's
it
get in those theaters.
Beat Avatar. Avatar sucks.
Yeah, I never understood Avatar.
I don't know
Stupid.
why that. Like,
Cool.
one reason it made a lot of
Yeah, it
money
looked
was
really
because
cool.
it was 3D, and so people went for the spectacle 3D. So
Yeah.
they spent more money for 3D tickets.
Yeah.
3D.
But the
That
film
3D was
itself,
pretty epic, though.
I didn't like it.
it's like it's such a lame movie. It's like, why is that one the best? Like,
Does it look good?
Yeah.
Was that like kind of when 3D was becoming more?
I was
popular?
entertained.
are you not entertained?
No, I was entertained.
Were you entertained?
Yes.
You were entertained.
I would love to see basically any movie.
Because what, below that is Titanic?
Yeah, so James Cameron.
Hate that movie. It's so
Titanic.
It
boring.
should be Sharknado.
Man, what's wrong with people?
Yes, Sharknado 4 will be the highest grossing film of all time.
Have you seen any of the Sharknado movies, Brandon? Oh my gosh. They're so terrible, they're hilarious.
I'm glad I.
Well, when the main character cuts himself out of a flying shark with a chainsaw, grabs a severed hand and takes a ring off of it, and then proposes to his ex-wife.
It didn't have a lightsaber.
Pretty epic. It's so bad, but they're really
Somehow I
funny.
don't wanna
Yeah.
see it.
Didn't you watch the second one with us? Who watched the second one with us?
I saw you guys.
It was
watching
me,
it.
you, and...
Wasn't it just us three?
Yeah, I think it was just the three of us.
Those are funny movies. They're not good, but they're not supposed to be good. You don't.
They're supposed
I know,
to
Yeah,
but-
they're like.
Well, now they're just writing that like for like their whole movie things. Now.
It's a cash
But
grab, but it's
The
hilarious.
first one, was it supposed to be that way?
Yes.
Like purposely bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, well, if that's their purpose from the beginning, then
I want to go to Walmart and buy the third one just to watch it.
See, the only problem is they'll shoot more to the fact that they get a little bit too good, so that they're actually just bad movies.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're so bad right now that it's good. It's good. It's.
Once they actually start trying,
Yeah.
then they'll really suck.
But they had some really funny cameos. Like they had the pilot from Airplane, where he's flying the plane at the very beginning, and he
Will
like,
Wheaton did. Will Wheaton had a cameo in the second
Will
one.
Wheaton, is that the guy from Portal? The ball?
Will Wheaton?
That's
No,
Wheatley.
that's Wheatley.
Close.
Will Wheatley.
Yeah, right.
Will Wheaton was in Star Trek.
Dang.
Brandon's
Brandon's
favorite films.
Yeah, Brandon's favorite TV shows and
Wesley
films.
Crusher.
Another interesting fact about episode 7 is
just know
it's the first Star Wars to be released that lines up with the number episode. It's the 7th film and it's episode 7.
Does that make sense?
Mind blown!
So
It's also the first Star Wars film not released in May.
So you're saying it's 7 because it's 7?
Episode 4 was the first film out. Episode 5 was the second film out. Episode 6 was the third film
gonna go all
out. Episode
each
1 was the 4th film out.
Keep going.
Episode 2 was the
Go
5th
on.
film out.
Beat
Episode
it into
3
his
was
brain.
the 6th film out. And episode 7 was the 7th film out. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
Mind blow!
Oh.
Okay, I thought you were just saying like it was 7 because it was 7. I don't know.
4th was the first film. 5th was the second film.
Shmi, okay? Shmi.
Snopes.
The Sith Lord.
I like it.
Shmi and Jar Jar.
I like it. Oh, Shmi.
Jar Jar was the father of Anakin, and Shmi was so ashamed.
He has his father's eyes.
And that's why Jar Jar came back, so that he could see his son, because she wouldn't let him see.
Way to go, Andy!
Misa protect Annie.
Yeah. He's like, my boy. He has my ears.
Well,
Good talk.
time to wrap up.
Yeah, I think we're done.
We got a board game to play.